Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest. You've been told that beyond the first row of trees lies a path that leads to everything you've ever hoped for. Yet there's a voice soft but firm that warns you of dangers, urging you to prepare before you step in. Do you stop to listen, or do you ignore it, assuming you have all the time in the world? Life often mirrors this moment. Each day we are surrounded by voices, some wise, some misleading. But how often do we truly listen to the ones that matter? Not just hear, but listen with the intent to understand, to learn, to act. Many fail to realize that listening is more than an act of hearing. It is the first step to transformation. But listening requires humility, the willingness to accept that we don't have all the answers. And here lies the paradox: those most in need of wisdom are often the least willing to hear it. The value of timely wisdom. Timely wisdom holds a profound significance in shaping our lives, yet it is often overlooked until its absence becomes glaringly apparent. The lessons offered at the right moment possess the unique power to prevent disaster, guide decisions, and illuminate the path forward. These moments of insight, however fleeting, carry the potential to alter the trajectory of a life. Yet their value is frequently obscured by the noise of distraction, the arrogance of self-sufficiency, or the inertia of comfort. At its core, timely wisdom is an act of intervention. It is the lifeline thrown in turbulent waters, the signpost at a crossroads, or the hand that steadies us as we teeter on the brink of a poor decision. It is not merely knowledge, it is knowledge delivered with precision, crafted for a specific moment, relevant to a pressing need. This immediacy is what separates it from general advice or theoretical understanding. The timing, much like the content itself, determines its power to impact. A word of caution, encouragement, or direction given too late is like rain on a harvested field, helpful, perhaps, but misaligned with its true purpose. One of the reasons timely wisdom is so powerful is its capacity to bridge the gap between what we know and what we do. Humans are not devoid of knowledge. Many understand the principles of right and wrong, wisdom and folly. However, understanding without action is hollow. Timely wisdom jolts us into action by presenting truth in a context where it cannot be ignored. It resonates because it feels urgent, and in that urgency it pierces through the layers of hesitation, fear, or pride that often prevent us from acting. Consider the role of mentors, teachers, or even loved ones in delivering timely wisdom. These individuals often possess a clarity of vision that eludes us, especially when we are entangled in the immediacy of our circumstances. Their words come from a vantage point of experience, offering perspectives that expand our limited view. For example, a mentor's advice to invest in self-discipline during youth might seem restrictive at the time, but later proves invaluable when the habits formed during those years bear fruit in adulthood. Similarly, a friend's urging to resolve a conflict before it festers can prevent years of regret and estrangement. Timely wisdom is not always convenient, and therein lies its challenge. It often confronts us when we least desire to hear it, when we are comfortable, when we are defensive, or when we are convinced of our own perspective. It is difficult to embrace the value of wisdom that demands immediate change, for change is inherently disruptive. Yet it is precisely this disruption that underscores its importance. Wisdom challenges us to reconsider, to recalibrate, to confront the uncomfortable truths we might prefer to ignore. Ignoring timely wisdom can have profound consequences. A single moment of neglect can spiral into a series of missed opportunities or compounded errors. The tragedy lies not in the lack of wisdom, but in our failure to act upon it when it is presented. Opportunities have a way of disappearing as quickly as they arrive. A word spoken in season, a warning before a decision, Guidance before a commitment, encouragement before a leap of faith is irreplaceable. It cannot be retrieved once dismissed, nor can its full impact be replicated in hindsight. There is also a relational dimension to timely wisdom. The voices that deliver it, be they those of friends, family, mentors, or even strangers, are gifts in themselves. These individuals invest in us by offering their insights, often at personal cost. And to dismiss their advice is not merely to reject their words, but to undervalue the relationship that prompted their concern. Over time, ignoring such wisdom can lead to isolation, as people grow weary of offering guidance that falls on deaf ears. Timely wisdom is a testament to the fleeting nature of time itself. Life moves forward, indifferent to our readiness or lack thereof. The right word at the right moment serves as a reminder that we cannot afford to delay decisions that matter. It urges us to seize the present, to respond to the truth while it is fresh and actionable. Time once lost cannot be regained, and wisdom unheeded rarely returns in the same form. The value of timely wisdom lies in its ability to awaken us to the urgency of the now. It offers a chance to align our actions with what truly matters, to avoid pitfalls, and to embrace opportunities that might never come again. To recognize its value is to understand that every moment carries the potential for growth, but only if we are willing to listen and act before the moment slips away. The danger of ignorance. Ignorance, though often dismissed as a passive state, is one of the most perilous conditions a person can find themselves in. Its danger lies in its invisibility. Those who are ignorant are often unaware of their ignorance. Unlike deliberate mistakes or intentional wrongs, ignorance thrives in the absence of awareness, quietly shaping decisions, relationships, and outcomes without the individual's knowledge. The peril is not only in what is unknown, but in the unwarranted confidence that often accompanies it. The primary danger of ignorance is its ability to blind individuals to the consequences of their actions. Decisions made without understanding their full implications can lead to irreversible harm. Whether it is an uninformed financial decision that leads to debt, or a careless word that fractures a relationship, the results of ignorance are rarely neutral. What makes it particularly insidious is that the ignorant often act with conviction, believing their choices are sound. This misplaced confidence amplifies the damage, as it prevents them from seeking correction or alternative perspectives. Ignorance also thrives on isolation. A person who is unwilling to listen to others or seek knowledge beyond their immediate experience risks creating an echo chamber of their own limited understanding. This isolation reinforces existing misconceptions and closes the door to growth. When individuals shut themselves off from learning, whether out of pride, fear, or laziness, they deprive themselves of the tools necessary to navigate life effectively. It is not merely a lack of information that defines ignorance, but a resistance to acquiring it. The danger of ignorance extends beyond the individual, affecting relationships and communities. In interpersonal dynamics, ignorance often manifests as misunderstanding or miscommunication. For instance, a failure to understand another person's perspective can lead to unnecessary conflict. Ignorance of cultural, emotional, or social nuances can erode trust and foster resentment. On a larger scale, widespread ignorance within a community can hinder progress, perpetuate inequality, and create divisions. History is replete with examples of societies that suffered because they ignored critical knowledge or dismissed voices of reason. One of the most troubling aspects of ignorance is its resistance to truth. The ignorant mind is often shielded by defensiveness or denial. When confronted with facts or perspectives that challenge its beliefs, it may respond not with curiosity but with hostility. This rejection of truth compounds the problem, as it prevents the individual from breaking free of their ignorance. This phenomenon is particularly evident in matters of deep-seated belief, where acknowledging ignorance would require a fundamental shift in identity or worldview. Ignorance is also dangerous because it is exploitable. Those who lack knowledge are more susceptible to manipulation, whether by individuals, institutions, or ideologies. Without the ability to critically evaluate information, the ignorant can be led astray, persuaded to act against their best interests, or coerced into supporting harmful causes. This vulnerability underscores the importance of education and self-awareness as safeguards against exploitation, but ignorance can lead to missed opportunities. In life, many doors remain closed not because they are locked, but because individuals lack the knowledge to recognize them. A person unaware of their own potential may never pursue the education, career, or relationships that could enrich their life. Similarly, ignorance of the world's complexity and beauty limits one's capacity for wonder and appreciation. Life's fullness is accessible only to those willing to explore it, and ignorance acts as a self-imposed barrier to this exploration. Ignorance also undermines self-development. Personal growth depends on the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and challenge one's assumptions. Ignorance, by contrast, allows people to remain complacent. It fosters a false sense of security, encouraging individuals to stay within the confines of what they know rather than venturing into the unknown. While this may seem comfortable, it ultimately stunts growth and leads to a stagnant existence. The danger of ignorance becomes most apparent in moments of crisis. In times of adversity, the ignorant often find themselves unprepared, lacking the knowledge or skills needed to navigate challenges effectively. Whether it is ignorance of financial planning during an economic downturn or ignorance of health practices during a pandemic, the costs of unpreparedness can be devastating. These moments reveal the true price of ignorance, highlighting the importance of foresight and learning. Ignorance often perpetuates itself through cycles of neglect. A child raised in an environment where learning is not valued is more likely to grow up ignorant, continuing the cycle in their own family or community. Breaking free from this cycle requires intentional effort and a commitment to education. It is a reminder that ignorance is not merely an individual failing but a collective responsibility. Society as a whole suffers when knowledge is undervalued, and addressing ignorance requires a shared dedication to fostering curiosity and understanding. The dangers of ignorance are not always immediate or visible, but their impact is profound and far-reaching. It undermines the individual's potential, damages relationships, and hampers societal progress. The antidote to ignorance is not merely information, but the cultivation of a mindset that values learning, curiosity, and the humility to acknowledge what one does not know. The quiet voice within. The quiet voice within, often referred to as intuition or conscience, is one of the most profound yet underestimated guides in our lives. Unlike the clamor of external opinions or the noise of the world, this voice speaks in a still, small tone, requiring intentional effort to hear and heed. Its presence is a gift, a constant companion offering insight, guidance, and warnings tailored to our unique circumstances. However, its subtlety makes it easy to overlook, and failing to recognize its importance can lead to missed opportunities, unnecessary struggles, and a disconnection from one's true self. One of the defining characteristics of the quiet voice within is its persistent honesty. While external influences often cater to our desires, ego, or fears, this inner guide speaks only what is true. It tells us what we need to hear, not necessarily what we want to hear. For instance, it might nudge us to admit fault in a conflict or encourage us to take a difficult but necessary step toward growth. Its honesty can be uncomfortable, especially when it contradicts our immediate inclinations. But it is precisely this discomfort that signals its authenticity. Listening to the quiet voice requires a level of self-awareness that is rare in a world dominated by distractions. In modern life, where busyness is often mistaken for productivity, the moments of stillness required to hear this voice are increasingly scarce. It is during these moments of solitude, whether through prayer, meditation, or reflection, that the voice becomes clear. Yet many avoid such moments, either out of fear of what they might discover or because they have grown unaccustomed to the silence. This avoidance creates a cycle where the voice grows fainter, making it even harder to reconnect with. The quiet voice within is not infallible, but it is deeply personal. It draws from a well of experiences, values, and moral convictions unique to each individual. This personal nature makes it an invaluable tool for decision-making. While advice from others can be helpful, it is often generalized or influenced by their own biases. The inner voice, on the other hand, is attuned to the specific nuances of our lives. It considers factors that external sources cannot, such as our long-term aspirations, emotional state, and moral compass. Ignoring the quiet voice within can have significant consequences. Over time, disregarding its guidance can lead to a sense of inner conflict or dissonance. For example, a person who continually suppresses their conscience to pursue short-term gains may find themselves burdened by guilt or regret. Similarly, ignoring intuitive warnings about a toxic relationship or unwise decision can result in prolonged suffering that could have been avoided. This disconnect from one's inner self often manifests as feelings of restlessness, dissatisfaction, or confusion, signaling the need to realign with the guidance that has been ignored. The quiet voice is also a source of courage. In moments of doubt or fear, it often whispers truths that empower us to move forward. It may remind us of our resilience in the face of adversity or encourage us to trust in a process that seems uncertain. Unlike the loud, demanding voices of fear or self-doubt, this inner guide offers a calm assurance that speaks to our potential and purpose. Its presence can be a stabilizing force, providing clarity and confidence when external circumstances feel overwhelming. Another remarkable quality of the quiet voice is its ability to reveal hidden truths about ourselves. It gently exposes our motivations, strengths, weaknesses, and desires, inviting us to engage in self-discovery. For instance, it might prompt us to question whether our actions align with our values or whether we are pursuing goals that truly matter to us. This self-awareness is essential for growth, as it allows us to make intentional choices rather than being driven by external pressures or unconscious habits. The quiet voice within also fosters empathy and compassion. By encouraging introspection, it helps us recognize our own imperfections and, in turn, extend grace to others. It may urge us to forgive someone who has wronged us or to reach out to someone in need. This aspect of the inner voice not only strengthens relationships, but also deepens our sense of connection to the world around us. One of the challenges in listening to the quiet voice is distinguishing it from other internal dialogues. The mind is a busy place filled with competing thoughts, emotions, and influences. Fear, for instance, can masquerade as intuition, while ego can drown out the voice of conscience. Developing the discernment to identify the true quiet voice requires practice and patience. It involves tuning into the stillness and paying attention to the feelings of peace, clarity, or conviction that often accompany its guidance. The quiet voice within is a reminder of our intrinsic capacity for wisdom and self-guidance. It calls us to trust in ourselves, to align our actions with our values, and to pursue a life of authenticity and purpose. But like any gift, it must be nurtured to be effective. The more we listen and respond to it, the stronger and clearer it becomes, enabling us to navigate life with greater clarity and integrity. Conversely, ignoring it leads to a gradual erosion of its influence, leaving us more reliant on external voices that may not have our best interests at heart. This inner guide, though often overlooked, holds the key to a more intentional and fulfilling life. It asks only that we pause, reflect, and choose to listen small acts that can yield profound results. The consequences of missed warnings. Missed warnings are among the most sobering realities of life. They serve as markers of opportunities disregarded, lessons unheeded, and dangers underestimated. While they may initially seem inconsequential, their effects often ripple through time, magnifying into profound consequences. A missed warning is not merely a lapse in judgment, it is a pivotal moment where attention, humility, or action was lacking, leading to outcomes that could have been avoided. The first and most immediate consequence of missing a warning is the loss of protection. Warnings exist to shield us from harm, whether physical, emotional, or moral. Ignoring a warning about hazardous weather can lead to injury, while disregarding advice about a harmful habit may result in long-term health issues. These protective signals, whether they come from others or from our own intuition, are not arbitrary. They are informed by experience, foresight, or deeper understanding. By missing them, we expose ourselves to preventable risks, leaving ourselves vulnerable to the very dangers the warning sought to avoid. Missed warnings often compound over time, creating a cascade of unintended consequences. For example, ignoring early signs of financial instability such as overspending or inadequate saving may lead to deeper problems like debt or bankruptcy. Similarly, failing to address minor relationship conflicts can escalate into irreparable rifts. These cumulative effects underscore the importance of responding promptly to warnings. What begins as a manageable issue can grow into a crisis if left unchecked, and the further one goes without addressing it, the more difficult it becomes to recover. Another significant consequence of missed warnings is regret. The realization that harm could have been avoided often weighs heavily on the mind, creating a sense of guilt or self-reproach. This regret is not limited to the individual alone. It can extend to relationships and communities, especially when the warning was ignored collectively. For instance, societal issues like environmental degradation or public health crises often stem from early warnings that were dismissed or undervalued. The regret of inaction becomes a shared burden, highlighting the far-reaching impact of missed opportunities to act wisely. Missed warnings also erode trust, both in ourselves and in others. When we fail to heed our own intuition, we may begin to doubt our ability to make sound judgments. Over time, this self-doubt can hinder our confidence and decision-making. Likewise, ignoring the advice of trusted individuals can strain relationships. If a friend or mentor repeatedly offers guidance that is overlooked, they may feel devalued or disrespected. This breakdown in trust can lead to isolation, as people become less inclined to share their insights when they feel unheard. One of the more subtle consequences of missing warnings is the loss of growth opportunities. Warnings are not solely about avoiding harm, they often point toward areas where improvement or learning is needed. A warning about procrastination, for instance, is also an invitation to develop discipline and time management skills. By dismissing such warnings, we miss the chance to refine ourselves and address weaknesses. Growth requires acknowledging the areas where we fall short, and warnings are valuable indicators of where that acknowledgement is needed. The consequences of missed warnings are not always immediate, which can make them particularly insidious. A decision to ignore a warning may seem harmless in the moment, but its effects can manifest months or even years later. This delayed impact often catches people off guard, as the connection between the warning and its consequence becomes less obvious over time. For example, Neglecting health warnings about poor diet and lack of exercise may not show effects until much later, when chronic illnesses emerge. The delay creates a false sense of security, lulling individuals into believing that their inaction has no repercussions until reality proves otherwise. Missed warnings also have a moral dimension. Many warnings carry ethical implications, urging us to act with integrity or to avoid behaviors that harm others. Ignoring these warnings can lead to a compromise of values, resulting in actions that conflict with one's conscience or principles. Over time, this moral erosion can create a sense of inner dissonance as individuals struggle to reconcile their actions with their sense of right and wrong. This internal conflict not only affects personal well-being, but also diminishes one's ability to build meaningful, trustworthy relationships. The broader societal implications of missed warnings are equally concerning. History is filled with examples of disasters that could have been mitigated or avoided had warnings been heeded. From economic collapses to environmental crises, the collective failure to act on early signs often leads to suffering on a large scale. These events serve as stark reminders of the interconnectedness of individual and collective actions. The consequences of ignoring warnings are rarely confined to the individual. They ripple outward, affecting families, communities, and even nations. Missed warnings also reveal a deeper issue: the human tendency to prioritize convenience, comfort, or pride over caution. Listening to a warning often requires humility, as it forces us to acknowledge our limitations and accept guidance. It may also require effort, as responding to a warning typically involves change, preparation, or sacrifice. This reluctance to disrupt our routines or challenge our assumptions is a major reason why warnings go unheeded. However, the temporary discomfort of addressing a warning is far preferable to the lasting consequences of ignoring it. Missed warnings serve as lessons in themselves, albeit costly ones. They remind us of the importance of attentiveness, humility, and action. While their consequences may be painful, they also provide an opportunity for reflection and growth. Each missed warning is a chance to recalibrate, to learn from past mistakes, and to approach future decisions with greater wisdom and care.